Well, we're going into a dry open, I guess today is what I like to call it, because I guess our video and music is not playing technical issues. So I guess we'll just start this way. Welcome to Naturally Inspired Radio. I'm so glad you're joining me today. It's kind of overcast here in northern Colorado today. Very hot, very dry. Totally busy morning. I was down in a local radio station doing some promotion for Naturally Inspired this morning. So I haven't even really been out on the farm today. I just let the cats out before I left, and I'm still dealing with a limping little kitten. So that will be my weekend probably this weekend, is kind of monitoring that little kitten and figuring out more of what I need to do with that. We have tons of work to do around the farm this weekend. Mending fences due to our overly adventurous little black calf who I think we've got corralled now. I don't think he can get out anymore, but we're still working on fences. We've got chicken coop repair to do. Oh goodness, what else? We have a lot of yard work to do. That is the plight of anyone who lives on a small farm. And there is no recreational time or very little recreational time anyway. Sometimes you just have to let it go and go out and do some recreational stuff anyway, which I'm sure we will do. It's Friday night, and so there will likely be a Friday night dance party in my kitchen tonight because it has been kind of one of those weeks. But we did make it through. You did make it through this week, and so congratulations. I hope you were able to make some headway on your optimum health plan. If you joined us on Tuesday night, I'm so glad that you're there. I want to invite everybody to join us on the Tuesday night weekly wellness workshops. All you got to do is book a free 30-minute session with me at naturallyinspiredstore.com, and I'll get you scheduled, and you can become a part of that awesome group geared towards optimum health. So let's get started. Today, the topic I want to start off, and I sure hope that my clips are working. Oh my goodness. I hope my clips are working. I'm going to say a little prayer right now that my clips are working. But we'll just go through it. You know what I mean? This is live radio. This is what happens. Okay. So today's topic. So last night I was on the Red Pill Project with Josh Reed, and we had such a great conversation as always with Josh. We have this really inspiring, deep conversation, and we're just kind of talking a lot about, how culture is being shaped in the country, why it's being shaped the way it is, and of course, what we can do about it. And so today, that's kind of what jumped out at me for the daily topic, because I saw this first clip from Bobby Kennedy. I'm following him really closely these days because I feel like he is signaling a lot, and it's really important that we pay attention, especially in terms of our health, of course. So I've been really paying close attention to him, and this latest interview with him and Lara Trump is focused on data. So let's cue up the clip. Hopefully we'll get it to work. And we'll discuss it afterwards. So take a listen. Again, this is Bobby Kennedy on Lara Trump. Let's see. Say a little prayer that it works.
Was there anything you came in here and said, wow, I can't believe we've been doing this way for so long?
I get those surprises every day. The vast majority of people who work for this agency are extraordinary public servants, and they're very excited about, being given a direction that they join the agency because this is what they wanted to do. They wanted to protect children's health. But the leadership of this agency for many years has been bankrupt morally and I would say scientifically. I'll just tell you, one of the crazy things is that we could not get at the health data. And there's all these different agencies that store different health data. And when I came in here, they were selling it to each other. And we could be doing things with that. We could look, let's say there's 3 diabetes drugs. We can look at each one of them and say, this one is causing side effects in this particular demographic. And we can look at all these things and then start making good decisions about it. And that is what we're doing right now. We're revolutionizing this agency. We're bringing in AI. We've had a flood of extraordinary leaders from Silicon Valley. Some of them have literally walked away from billion-dollar businesses to come and work in humble jobs here to improve the delivery of healthcare, to improve the integrity of and the credibility of our science, to give individual Americans control over their health.
Okay, a lot to unpack there. So first of all, there was a couple things in there. There's a giant elephant in the room. And the elephant is this. Everybody's talking about, oh, we're streamlining things. We're fixing things. It's going to be much more efficient, less waste, right? They're automating a lot. They're using AI to collect data and to crunch data. And as he revealed here in this clip, the communication within the HHS agency itself, they were selling data back and forth to each other. Let's get really clear on this, okay? Data is currency. It's the new gold. That's why you see all these companies that are talking about, or developing products rather, that are data collection mechanisms, right? Like your Tesla, your car is a data collection device. Your car is a data collection device. Your wearables are a data collection device. Your phone is a data collection. It's not a car company. It's a data company. And I think that we need to pay more attention to that because we are marketed to as, this is a wearable device that's going to help you with your health. And so you think you're buying a watch. You think you're buying a ring. You think you're buying a item that is going to assist you in your health, or even a vehicle. You're buying a vehicle because you need one for transport, right? You're not considering that on the back end of all this, not only are they charging you for a device or a data or a vehicle, they are making money off of all the data that's being collected on you. That's why Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, they don't care about charging for you to use those because you yourself are the product for them, keeping you on there as long as possible so they can collect as much data off of you as possible. And TikTok is the most egregious data collection social platform there is. They collect every keystroke that you're making on there. And not just when you're using the app. It goes far beyond that. So any which way, this is why you're seeing a lot of extremely cheap products on TikTok or on Instagram that are, you think, how can they sell these sandals for $3.33? Because they aren't selling the item. They are monetizing your data. And this is the big elephant in the room. We're talking, we want this to happen. We want to know about this. We want to know about that. We're all tied up in these, whatever issues are in the news cycle. And just so happens, strangely enough, nobody's really talking about data collection. Nobody's really talking about what people should be caring about when it comes to their data, which is how are we protecting ourselves from our own data being weaponized against us? Because that's the key. You see, with predictive medicine coming in, and I have been talking about this for the last few weeks, predictive medicine is the new marketplace in biotech. This is the ability to predict possibly baby just might get a disease in the future that you need to be treated for now. See, that data is going to be very monetizable, because if an employer can get access to your health data and they can project that you may get sick based on that data at a certain time, at a certain point in time, then they know that is a variable in their consideration of hiring you. I mean, I can't even quantify how many different ways they could use the data that they have on us against us. I mean, it's endless, really. It's endless on how our data could be weaponized against us. But of course, a main concern of mine is how it could be weaponized against us when it comes to forcing medical procedures on us. Well, the science says that you will have this happen, A, B, C, and D. And so if you don't do this, we're not going to be able to do this for you. Or you're not going to be able to partake in these activities because this shows that you're at risk or whatever. We saw it through COVID. We saw digital passports, right? We saw digital vaccine passports that prohibited people from getting into places. It prohibited people in Canada from traveling, from getting on a bus, from getting on a plane, from getting on any kind of transport that was public. So this is really the issue that we should be talking about. And we have seen a division in MAHA, the movement of MAHA, the Make America Healthy Again movement. We've seen a division there. The division is this. We have this kind of one lane of freedom warriors that have been kind of after the issue of, vaccines being harmful, real cause, getting down to root cause, naturopathic medicine, nutrition, movement, lifestyle, spirituality. We have those soldiers who have stayed, true to their message, the drum they have been beating for many, 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 many decades now. We have that in the MAHA movement. And then we have this other more modern version of MAHA, people that have recently come on the scene to acknowledge that there's issues in our food supply, that there's issues, with the way we are treating people, that maybe insurance is a problem, that pharmaceuticals are a problem. They acknowledge that, but they all are also very heavily invested in wearables and technology and biotech and data collection. So I have to wonder why the elephant in the room isn't being addressed. And I can't help but think it's because we have some of these characters in there now that are of the modern MAHA movement, the movement of, providing solutions through trackability, providing solutions through advancement in technology. I mean, we've seen declarations coming from Bobby Kennedy where he says, he sees a future where all Americans are wearing a wearable. I want to know what's going on with that data. And you should want to know what's going on with that data. That is a conversation that must take place. It must take place, and we must demand that we get some transparency on how that data is being used. And more importantly, how we protect our freedom, how we are going to protect our freedom moving forward when it comes to that data. What kind of, is it a medical bill of rights? I don't know what it looks like, but we certainly have to demand the conversation when it comes to data. We have to demand that there's a conversation because that is a scary thing. Thinking that, moving forward, that we could be held captive because they have access to all of our data and they can weaponize that against us. Meaning, and then, add in the variable of, digital currency. And with digital currency, there's even further weaponization, right? If you don't partake in these injections, say, or this is even freakier. If you don't submit your child to partake in these determined science-based gene therapies, then you don't have access to your digital wallet. You don't have access to your currency. This is real stuff that is like, it's right there. It is right there. I mean, the technology is there. The platforms have been built. They are there. And so we have to demand that we get some transparency and we start having this conversation moving forward. Oh, we are going to be commercial free today, it sounds like, because we have we have no commercials moving forward. So I guess we're just going to wing it. No breaks today. Oh, this is going to be interesting. I'm getting messages here through the chat. Sounds like he's going to keep working on it and we'll see if we have breaks, but we do have clips. So let's just move on to the clips because there was a couple of points that I wanted to make from, again, the Peter Thiel podcast, which if you haven't watched it yet, I highly recommend everybody watch it. It's so fascinating to me that a podcast like that. So Peter Thiel, of course, heavily invested in Palantir and that technology. And, they are working hand in hand with the administration right now. They have these programs like Gotham that are being used right now in the United States government. This is who is in charge of that. And this interview with Peter Thiel got in my opinion, very little exposure. And you would have thought that it would have been a hot topic in the news. But of course, no, it was not. So I'm going to play you a couple clips here. We're going to start with this first one, and we'll discuss it afterwards. So let's cue the clip. Hopefully we get it to work.
About AI, and we need global compute governance. We need, a one world government to control all the computers, log every single keystroke to make sure people don't program, a dangerous AI. And I've been wondering whether that's sort of a, going from, the frying pan into the fire. And so the atheist philosophical framing is one world or none. That was a short film that was put out by the Federation of American Scientists in the late 40s. Starts with a nuclear bomb blowing up the world. And obviously you need a one world government to stop it, one world or none. And the Christian framing, which in some ways is the same question, is Antichrist or Armageddon. You have the one world state of the Antichrist, or we're sleepwalking towards Armageddon. One world or none, Antichrist or Armageddon, on one level are the same question. Now, I have a lot of thoughts on this topic, but sort of one question is, and this was a plot hole in all these Antichrist books people wrote. How does the Antichrist take over the world? He gives these demonic, hypnotic speeches, and people just fall for it. And so it's this plot hole. It's this daemonium.
Right. It's implausible.
Okay. So I may have mentioned throughout the week that part of this podcast is very, very clear that Peter Thiel is and this man that are from the New York Times having this discussion about how culture is shaped and how problems are used to usher in, different ways of life. He even points to 9/11, how 9/11, it was a crisis that then created a different culture. Well, of course it did. It brought in the Patriot Act, right? And also an endless war that produced really no good outcome. And so as we're moving into the digital revolution, we are, further being, COVID was a crisis used to push people into a new way of life. That was the start, right? That was the start of the acceleration. So in this podcast, Peter Thiel talks about stagnation. And essentially stagnation is just terrible to him. And he feels that we've been stagnant for the last 50 years, which I find comical and just a sign of how compartmentalized these tech people are. They see nothing but their tech world, and they are hyper fixated on progress through technology. And that means they don't see any other way of progress. Well, last night on the Red Pill Project, we were talking about that. We were talking about how progress, there's more to progress through technology. Like there's a lot we don't know about our own bodies. There's a lot we don't understand our own consciousness. There's a lot we don't understand. We can't even resolve our own trauma. Right? We many of us live, decades with childhood trauma, and it takes most people decades to work through their childhood trauma to get to a point where they can get the results they want in their life. So to me, there's a lot of other things that define progress other than technology. But in these people's compartmentalized minds, it is technology. Technology is progress. Technology is progress. Now, do they know something that we don't know? Sometimes I wonder that. Do you ever wonder that? Like, or do we have solar flares that are coming that are going to obliterate the world and we just don't know it and they don't want us to know? And so they're in a race to develop synthetic technology so that they can save humankind? Because if that's the case, you should probably tell us. We might be better at it if we were all kind of working together on it. But there's this belief that I guess we're too stupid to be able to absorb that information, or maybe it's because they want to be able to control the way they deal with something like that. But, we should all have agency in how we live the last few years of our life, if that indeed is what is happening. Right? I mean, if you need to be told that needs to be said. But I wonder about that sometimes because they are so incredibly compartmentalized. It's almost like they're a different species. It's almost like, they're just so incredibly detached from regular life that they have no acknowledgement for nature. And in this podcast, Peter Thiel even says the word nature is not found in the original, in the First Testament, in the Bible. It's not found anywhere. And he interprets that as a sign, I guess, as nature doesn't matter, which blows my mind because I see so many cues from nature in how we should be living and respecting our biology. So it's just the contrast between somebody who is so compartmentalized in technology through machines it's so stark. It's really, really a dramatic difference. It's almost like a totally different way of thinking. So he describes here really clearly that, historically, we need crises to happen in order to shape culture in a different way. He's of the opinion that we've been stagnant too long, 50 years in his opinion. 50 years. Think about what's happened in the last 50 years. And to quantify that as being stagnant is kind of mind-blowing to me. But anyway, he thinks we've been stagnant and that we need to get things accelerated and we need to progress. And so a crisis is needed. A crisis is needed. And they talk about the different options that we have. One is the environment, right? The environment, it might be big enough of a crisis to get people to bend a knee to authoritarian type of living. Listen, this is the other clip I wanted to share with you. Again, listen to this and then we'll discuss.
To you, I would say represents a kind of symbol of a anti-growth, effectively authoritarian, environmentalist-dominated future.
Sure, but we're not there yet. We're not there yet. It'd be like a very, very different society if you
If you
really
actually
stuck.
lived in a kind of degrowth, small Scandinavian villages.
I'm not sure it'd be North Korea, but it would be super oppressive.
One thing that's always struck me is that when you have this sense of stagnation, a sense of decadence, right? To use a word that I like to use for it in a society, you then also have people who end up being kind of eager for a crisis, right? Eager for a moment to come along where they can radically redirect society from the path it's on. Because I tend to think that in rich societies, you hit a certain level of wealth, people become very comfortable, they become risk averse, and it's just hard. It's hard to get out of decadence into something new without a crisis. So
there you have it, right? You understand that people need a break. They need a reason, rather. They need a reason to change out of decadence. And it's interesting because I just saw a post from somebody from the UK, and in the UK, coming from the UK into America to vacation. And he noted the stark difference between the lifestyle that is happening in the UK right now compared to America. And he said that in the past, it was similar. Coming from the UK to America, it was similar cars, similar lifestyles, and this time he noticed is dramatically different. That his experience in vacationing, which was, motorhoming, they rented a motorhome here and they were going around from state to state to view certain, state parks and whatnot. And he noted that it's dramatically different here in the U.S., noting that it's just so incredibly wealthy. That the vehicles, the motor, not only are the motor homes, some of these trailers and whatnot are, $100,000-$200,000. These traveling homes, essentially. That's what they are nowadays. I mean, there's just absolutely luxurious. And they were everywhere, he said. Average middle-class American family vacation in a couple $100,000 motorhome. And they're all touring the state parks, and they had rented one and got here, and they were just noting the stark contrast in the quality of life here compared to the UK. And he hadn't realized the decline that the UK had not been keeping up with America. And it was only when they traveled here this summer and they saw the decadence here in America that they realized how far away the UK is from America in that regard now. And in the past, it's always been very comparable. And so it's telling to me, that they're talking about decadence here and how a society gets to this high level of decadence. And then there has to be, nobody wants to lose the decadence. Nobody wants to lose the convenience. Nobody wants to lose the wealth. Of course not. But that will be the threat that people fear in order to get them to comply. And the compliance coming is, it's one world government. It is mass surveillance. It is technocracy. And that equals zero freedom. And I keep kind of getting caught on these phrases or things that certain leaders say. And Bobby Kennedy, for sure, keeps coming to mind when I listen to him speak, when he says things like, there is a burden to citizenship in America. There's a burden to democracy, right? I hate even the word democracy now because of what has happened over the last 5 years. A threat to democracy. Everything's a threat to democracy, right? It's propaganda. So I hate to even use the word democracy. I just want to say threat to freedom. Threat to be able to choose how you want to treat your own body. A threat to being able to raise your children the way you want to raise them within your own family's culture. We are at the point now where that is truly at risk here. And that's not hyperbole. Because these people envision progress only through technology, only through data collection, only through being able to expand the marketplace, especially through biotech. And that biotech, Noel Harari has said it over and over again, your data is not yours. It is your civic duty to submit your data because your data unlocks potential for other people, potential discoveries, potential whatever, potential progress. And so you don't even have the right to your own data in these people's minds. Now, there are two sides, as I've pointed out many times, right? There's one camp over here, like the Bill Gateses that are, and the Open AI and their camp, they want to get to the finish line first to be able to control that. And then you have over here on this side, Palantir and everybody that's in the administration now. But the thing that we need to be aware of is that the finish line is essentially the same. It's mass surveillance. It's enslavement. It's data collection. It is the Great Reset. And it's just a little frustrating when you see that we continue to spin our wheels on the latest news story. Not that those news stories aren't important. They are. But what's really important is what's not being talked about. And what's not being talked about is data. They're telling you how wonderful it is that they can collect all this data. Like, think about it. Why should you purchase, $100 watch or $100 wearable or a $200 wearable or what have you, or, $1,000 phone? And because you make the purchase of that device, you then are subject to that company having complete control over all of your data that you use through that device. Okay, let's have a conversation about that. Let's have an open conversation about that instead of your BS terms of service with your, this big a print where you have to check to agree. That's not informed consent. That is not informed consent. It doesn't begin to scratch the surface of how that data could be weaponized against people. That is the conversation. They're not going to want to have that conversation. I'm telling you, modern MAHA is not going to want to have that conversation. You know why? Because they all have companies. They all have companies that they're invested in. You see the cast of characters, all the ones that went to the White House, all the one that had a seat at the table during the MAHA sessions. They're all invested in wearables. They're all invested on the data collection side. And that is something we should be incredibly concerned about. Now, if you've got a plan for it, I'm not accusing anybody of anything, by the way. I'm not accusing anybody of anything. I'm not saying you're all sinister or there's malfeasance here or whatever, or that you're evil or what. I'm not saying that. I'm saying, let's start the conversation about it. Why is the conversation not happening? Because we're all concerned about it. We got a little taste of it during COVID. So we're all concerned about it. Why is the conversation not happening? Conversation needs to start and it needs to happen, because that is something we should all be very concerned about. That should probably be our priority at this point. Because you think that won't impact your life personally, you are sadly mistaken. because every bit of that data can be weaponized against us. So again, it's great to shine the light on all the things that are happening that are so fantastic and whatnot. But if we're not willing to look at the tough stuff, then we're going to have major problems in the future. So we got to amp up the conversation about data. The next story I want to cover is from Dr. Patrick Soon-Shiong. Have you seen this guy? He's been, forthcoming recently, I would say, in recent months with his experience. He is an oncologist, and he's seeing some alarming facts in the field of cancer. And so I want to share this clip with him, and then we'll discuss. Here it is. This is Dr. Patrick Soon-Shiong.
So this idea of the effectiveness and safety of the vaccines is real science. We need to talk about it. And guess what? Not only are we going to have two big crises about the recovery of California over the next decade, but we're going to have to address the rising incidence of cancer. For the first time in my career, I've seen an 8-year-old, 9-year-old, 10-year-old with colon cancer. The first time in my career, I've had a 13-year-old child in our clinic die of metastatic pancreatic cancer. We have to face this effectiveness and face reality.
Wow. So the first time in his entire career, he's seeing these types of cancers in young children. Again, another elephant in the room. If you want to cite science, then you have to recognize science, the way it should be recognized, which is what has changed, right? I mean, we all know, I'm preaching to the choir here, but what has changed, right? Why this rise in cancer? One side of the team, of the two teams, will say, well, it's the it's the processed food and it's the lifestyle, and they will quite glaringly ignore the one major variable, which is a total change, and that is mRNA technology. mRNA technology, not just the mRNA technology that was injected into individuals, but the impact that mRNA technology shedding into our environment around each other is having as well. See, none of that stuff is even being acknowledged as a variable. And let me tell you, that's just bad science. That's just bad science. And I'm not a scientist. I'll be the first to tell you I'm not a scientist, but I have done 1 or 2 science experiments in my lifetime. I've got 2 kids, and I went through school myself. And I specifically know, that when you're doing a science experiment of any kind, even a home science experience, you have to track every variable. If you're doing a science experiment on plants, say, how fast your plant is growing. I picked that one because we've done one of those before. You have to measure the water. You have to make sure every plant is getting equal amounts of water compared to the control, right? And if you are fertilizing those plants, well, then you have to measure the amount of fertilizer that you're giving those plants, because that's a variable that impacts your result. And, the light must be measured. Like, there's all these variables that you have to measure and take painstaking data on, right? You're scrutinizing the data, because the goal of a science experiment is to get the result and then be able to duplicate it, to be able to prove that indeed is what occurred, that it's real facts based in real science. Yet somehow, with the mRNA technology and with the science camp, none of these variables matter. None of these variables of the mRNA technology matter. I mean, there's so many things that could be impacting this. We don't know if there's a higher occurrence in cancers in young children, because Mom took the mRNA technology when she was pregnant. That's a possibility now, right? So the mRNA technology's been on the market for a few years. So some of these babies are now 3 years old, 2 years old. We need to look at that variable. That's one scenario, right? That's one case study that we should be looking at. What about people with comorbidities? Are they more susceptible to the mRNA technology? That's another test group, right? How is the mRNA technology commingling with other medications? You know, I can go on and on and on and on and on and on and on about the studies that need to be done on this particular technology to really rule it out that it isn't the cause of increased cancers in people. I mean, those are just so many are coming into my mind right now, and then it just blows my mind that the scientists aren't, I'm not even a scientist and I have these questions. Right? Like, I'm curious. I'd like to know. I'd like to conduct a study. I would like to know why this stuff is happening. But there's no curiosity here. There's no curiosity whatsoever. We have to ask ourselves why that is. It's because there's too much at stake of a benefit from mRNA technology. There's too much at stake here. There's this whole predictive medicine market that's emerging. There's this whole data collection piece that comes into play here. I mean, they will sell you a bill of goods that this is all about curing disease, and that, that may be a side effect of some of the mRNA technology and why they want to advance it so quickly, but it certainly isn't the main one. When I am looking for biotech stories to bring to you every single day, you know where I find them most? On Forbes magazine, on Entrepreneur magazine, on money magazines, people, on magazines that track the stock market, articles from the stock market. That's where, if you want to find the truth about medicine, just go to the financial papers. Because that is where you get the proof. If something's really doing damage or tanking, if, what's happening with the stock, that's where you need to be looking for your medical information. And by looking at that, I can tell you confidently what is up and coming is predictive medicine. It is predictive, meaning pre-treatment, right? And, data collection is key to pre-treatment. That's where we're headed, folks. That is where we are headed. Okay, I want to take a look at our naturally inspired moment now. It's kind of weird coming in dry like this with no commercials and no music, but I'm doing my best here. And I know it's time for the naturally inspired moment. And this is one of your favorite segments. So I want to make sure that I take my time and tell you all about what we're talking about today. Today's naturally inspired moment is 7 steps to letting go of dwelling on an issue. Do you ever find yourself replaying scenarios in your head, even from years ago? Do you ever find yourself dwelling on things and even waking up thinking about them? Or you're in the shower and you replay something and you cringe and you're like, oh, why did I say that? Or why? This is a pattern. This is a thought pattern that we are all susceptible to. And this week, I've been talking a lot about cutting out noise. That the more we can stay on frequency, meaning the more we can stay tuned into signal, which is the stuff that we do that matters, right? The thoughts that we do that propel us forward, that help us achieve what we want to achieve and keep us focused on our purpose, that is signal. Everything beyond that distracts us, gets us sucked down the scroll hole, gets us thinking off of in habitual patterns that do us no good whatsoever. That is noise. So we have to develop some strategies to be able to stay on frequency, to be able to stay on, the right path, on dialed into the signal and not the noise. So today's naturally inspired moment is about 7 steps to letting go of dwelling on an issue. Number 1, of course, it starts with awareness, right? Becoming aware that you're replaying some of this stuff in your head is very important. So notice the loop. Become aware you're replaying the same thought. Name it instead of letting it run unchecked. So this is so key to breaking a neural pathway, right? Neural pathways are built over time by thinking the same pattern of thought. That's how a habit is built. You have to think of it as an actual pathway in your brain. And when we think the same things over and over again, it becomes more comfortable and it becomes easier to slide into that pathway of thinking until we become aware of it. Once we're aware of it, then we have an opportunity to break that neural pathway. And when we break that neural pathway, we start developing a new neural pathway, which brings new habits, which brings different results. So becoming aware of it is key. Naming it. Oh, I'm going down the dwelling pattern again. And that's just my way of naming it, right? So we're going down the dwelling pattern again. This is my awareness check. I'm going to choose to divert it. And I'm not going to dwell on that same story, on that same issue, because it's not helping, right? It's only creating more noise and taking you away from the signal. Number 2, ask, is this solvable? Is this issue that I keep replaying in my mind, is it solvable? If it's not something you can control, because maybe somebody else is involved and we can't control what other people do or say or think, can you change it right now? And if you cannot change it right now, give yourself permission to release it. Release it, right? And some of the ways you can do that visually is just, thinking of the issue or the story in your mind, put it inside of a balloon, Imagine putting the story that you've told yourself over and over again, that's developed these deep pathways, that contributes to noise, that keeps you away from the signal. Imagine recounting it one last time, putting it inside of a balloon. And then while you're holding on to the balloon, put it all inside of the balloon in your word pictures in your mind. And then when it's all full, let go of the balloon and release it. I know that sounds like a little corny or whatever, but you are dealing with the human brain. And when you work in word pictures, it helps the brain start to accept what you want it to do. You may have to do this more than once, but it is a very effective way of changing patterns in your brain. Number 3, interrupt the pattern. So when you start thinking about that story or you start, stewing on that issue or that person or whatever, get up and move your physical body. Actually move your physical body or change your breath pattern. So you can just switch up your breath pattern. Maybe you decide to take 3, deep breaths before you allow yourself to think about anything else. Take that pause to take a breath. Another one is make up a mantra, so you can break the mental loop with physical action. So I'm choosing not to dwell on thoughts that do not serve me. I do not dwell on thoughts that serve me. I do not dwell on thoughts that don't serve me. Something to that effect. But anything that you can do to break the pattern, to interrupt the pattern of thought. Another one is reframe the thought. Ask yourself, what's one possible positive outcome here? Shift the lens. What I've been doing and have been doing for a while is, what did I learn from this experience? What can I take away so that the next time things turn out differently? So just asking your brain, what did I learn from this? That is a reframe of that pattern of thought that will help you move forward in a positive way. Number 5, write it down. Oh, this is a good one. Write it down. Getting all your thoughts out on paper helps clear it from your mind. So even if you don't have the intention of giving it to anybody or sending the email or, whatever, you don't have any intention of doing anything with it, just getting it out on paper gets it out of your mind. And it's a very effective tool. So write it down and write it like nobody is ever going to read it. So you're not self-censoring. This is such an effective tool. A lot of clients that I work with, when we're talking about emotional stuff, especially, I'll ask them, well, when did this, problem start happening? And can you align it with any other kind of incidences in your life? And a lot of times people automatically knee-jerk reaction is, no, I can't think of anything else that aligned with this. But further investigation would reveal that something else happened during that time when they started experience increased inflammation or headaches or gut issues or pain or fatigue or weight gain. The body does not forget, and it will protect you at all costs in the way it knows how to do it. So it's very important that when you are going through a health issue, you try to look back in history and figure out if there was some kind of life event that coincided with the current result that you're experiencing now. It's a very effective tool when you're going through something like that to write down everything. What happened during that time period? Get it out of your body. Of course, there's somatic tools that you can use too. We were talking yesterday with Terry Fox from Fox Haven Aesthetics about somatic acupuncture. That often he will perform acupuncture on people and they release emotion because it is stored in your tissue. It is stored in your tissue. So one way to get it out beyond somatic, and I would say, it's a great partnership, to write things down, to work on your nutrition and what you're putting into your body, and to have it released with things like somatic body work or massage or acupuncture, kind of a multi-pronged approach there. That can help you stop replaying the same story in your mind day after day. Focus on the present. Engage fully in what you're doing right now. Present leaves less room for dwelling. So many of us are living either in the past, in here, or in the future, and not in the present. And when we live in the future or we live in the past, there's a lot of uncertainty there. And guess what? The brain does not like uncertainty. It doesn't like it. And so that creates stress response. That creates the worry, the doubt, the projection of what might happen is all uncertainty. So when we focus on the present, we can dial into more signal and cut out the noise because all you have is the present. Nobody's promised tomorrow. We know that. So why spoil the present with what may happen in the future or what happened in the past that is already over and doesn't even currently exist anymore? Something to consider. Number 7, practice self-compassion. Remind yourself it's human to get stuck sometimes, and letting go is a practice, not perfection. But these tools, if used, are very effective in being able to stop that constant dwelling on issues that we have no control over, and they only bring us results we're not happy with. Just making a shift with these 7 steps can help you let go and get better results. I think we're going to try to take a break here, if that's okay. Jason, maybe you can let me know in the chat. Before hour 2, what we'll do is we'll go to a break. We'll try to reboot. We've got a great second hour for you planned. Dean Lerwick is back from Pumpkin Creek Ranch. We're going to continue our conversation that we didn't get to have yesterday because of technical difficulties, but it'll be a good one because Dean is so smart. He always teaches me something about regenerative farming. That's the topic we all need to be concerned about these days, is our food and our quality of food. So he'll be joining us in the second hour. And of course, I have our health topic. Today, we're talking about crumbling toenails. Do you ever get your toenails and they get a little weird on you? They get a little weird and they don't cut off anymore. And I get a lot of questions about this. I get a lot of questions about crumbling toenails. So we're going to talk about that. I'm going to tell you why they happen and what you can do about it. So stay tuned. We're going to take a break, but we'll be back at the top of the hour. See you then. All right, we're back. Yeah, coming in a little bit dry again. It's so weird. You get used to doing things a certain way, and then when they change, it kind of throws you for a loop, just the littlest things. But I want to thank you for tuning in to Naturally Inspired Radio. This is where we expose what's broken in the healthcare system, connect you to real solutions for health, and inspire you to take back control of your life, because we want you to feel empowered, informed, and free to live naturally without fear, confusion, or any dependency. I want to encourage you to book a one-on-one personalized session with me. It's a judgment-free conversation about your current health results. We take a look at your lifestyle. Okay, we take a look at the environment that you're living in. What kinds of products are you using in your house? How are you exposed to toxins? And what are those toxins' impact on your body? Then we take a look at nutrition. And what I have found is that many people think they are eating healthy. They think they're following dietary guidelines and that the foods that they're eating are very healthy. And then we find out that we aren't considering things like our satiety response and also our nutritional needs. We aren't eating for nutritional needs. Rather, we're eating more for what I call mouth pleasure or even entertainment. So we take a look at your nutrition, and also we take a look at your physicality. How are you moving your body? And are you making the most of the movement that you're doing? Is it the best movement for you? And then, of course, we look at stress management and even emotional stuff. And we help integrate those things. I give you tools to help integrate those things. And then not only that, but after the one-on-one session, the 30-minute free consult, you get to be a part, as a customer of Naturally Inspired, you get to be a part of our weekly wellness workshop. And this past week, every Tuesday night at 7:00, we come together as the Naturally Inspired community, and we talk about a different topic. We've talked about gut health. We've talked about insulin resistance. Recently, we talked about kind of the foundations of health. So we talked about, briefly, we touched on fundamentals of nutrition. We talked about sleep. We talked about hydration. We talked a little bit about movement. And I think it was very beneficial. And some of the feedback I got from it was just wonderful, how people are so excited to have something finally have something that is cost effective, right? It's not expensive. I'm telling you, the stuff that we do in Naturally Inspired, other people are charging thousands and thousands of dollars to get that kind of guidance. And at Naturally Inspired, we are all about the message. We are all about shaping culture. We want everyone to be able to access support for their optimum health journey, because we know that is how we're going to change the culture of health in the country, is if everybody has access to the information and to support and to guidance on their optimum health journey, because we're all role models. What we do impacts the people around us. And let me tell you, when you start getting healthy and you're around a bunch of people that, maybe they had similar practices in their lifestyle that you did that produced you not the health results that you wanted, and you come into your community and you show up and you start getting results, guess what happens? Everybody wants to know what you're doing. Everybody wants to understand how you're getting better results. And that's how you show up in your community as a leader. It's a very, very effective approach. And that's what Naturally Inspired does. It supports you through that journey. So you leave after this 30-minute assessment with me, you leave with simple, actionable steps, whether you want more energy, maybe you're looking to lose weight, maybe it's sleep that's an issue for you. And don't be fooled. If you're not sleeping, that is a variable you need to address about your health. So even emotional balance, everybody's got a little something that they want to work on. Maybe it's autoimmune stuff, maybe it's inflammation, maybe it's pain. Everybody in the community has their own thing that they're working on, and we support them week to week, ongoing. Not only that, you get priority access to my text line, 720-303-8868, just for being a customer of Naturally Inspired. I mean, it really is such a fantastic value. And again, the reason why we do that is because our primary mission here is to change the medical model and shape culture in health in our country for better outcomes. We do not want to leave this broken, sick system to your kids or to my kids. I definitely do not want to do that. So that is the meaning behind all of everything that Naturally Inspired does. All right, let's move on to another story because Nicole Shanahan is making headway in the geoengineering space. She's been, pining away, just continue to pump out work and talk about all the issues that really matter. And she has a new documentary out about geoengineering, and I believe it's called Dark MAHA. And she explains in a tweet that over the past month, she's been in contact with a government whistleblower, an individual who has held high-level security clearances and has spent over a decade consulting directly with major federal agencies. Their experience spans the Department of Defense, the Department of Energy, NOAA, and the intelligence community. With their permission, I've agreed to share here on X the information that they have provided her, and they believe it should raise serious concerns. I have a clip from Nicole Shanahan here that explains a little bit more. Take a listen.
Right now, because they are being recruited at an alarming rate. If you're at Harvard today or at Stanford, there is a geoengineering group at both of these schools, and they're recruiting young people to either one, be activists for geoengineering, or they're being recruited to work at the firms that are responsible for conducting the geoengineering. That's where some of our best scientists and young people are going these days. They're being misdirected. How do we stop the fear-mongering that states that don't throw the baby out with the bathwater?
We know these programs are ongoing. We would argue at geoengineeringwatch.org that climate engineering, solar radiation management, is a recipe for near-term planetary omnicide. So not only is it ubiquitously contaminating the entire biosphere, no exceptions, everywhere, but it's also destroying the ozone layer, which by itself is a near-term existential threat. There are many forms of human activity that are problematic for the ozone layer, but nothing mathematically even compares mathematically to what climate engineering is doing. And this is a known consequence of climate engineering. The climate science community admits that if we geoengineered, as if we haven't been for decades, that this would occur.
As if we haven't been for decades, as he points out there. We've covered that at length here. And we have had weather manipulation technology available to us definitely since the 60s. Some even say from the late 1940s. And that's Dean Wigington in that video there with Nicole Shanahan. We've reached out to invite him to the Naturally Inspired Health Summit in 2026. So I'm hopeful that he'll be able to join us at next year's Naturally Inspired Health Summit. It'll be June 13th, 2026 here in Colorado. So I'm hopeful that we'll be able to get him. I hope we can, because of course he's probably one of the leading expert in geoengineering. He's been getting accused of wearing a tinfoil hat way before many of us. And boy, was he right. So anyway, Nicole's talking about how they are actively recruiting young people in universities about the geoengineering and climate issue. Now go back to what we've been talking about this week with the Peter Thiel clips that I've played for you from his podcast, where he's talking about crisis, and he indicates that climate is probably the issue that's going to get them across the finish line into a one world government where they can then, execute their agenda of digital enslavement. It's here. I don't even care how crazy that sounds to some people or whatever, it's here. Like this is a pattern established in history, that crises that are manufactured then help shape the masses into the solution. And it's getting pretty obvious here that they're using geoengineering to create manipulated weather, to create catastrophe, so that the narrative is affirmed that all of this weather, this catastrophic weather, is coming from climate change, so that then they can use climate change, the environment, to be able to say, well, We've got a real collective issue here, and it's climate change. We all live on this planet. This is what we have to do in order to save the planet. This is what we have to do. We have to be tracked and traced. We have to live in zones. We have to live in 15-minute cities. You cannot possibly travel anymore. It's bad for the environment, and you become a climate criminal if you step outside the regulations. Does it sound far-fetched? It certainly doesn't to me, and I don't think it does to Nicole Shanahan. I think that's exactly what she's getting at here. Some words that you should pay attention to is solar radiation modification, and stratospheric aerosol intervention. Stratospheric aerosol intervention. This is all, of course, all about why Bill Gates wants to dim the sun. Can you imagine? The sun. The sun is what sets our circadian rhythm. The sun is, of course, our source of creating vitamin D in our bodies, which has been, known to keep us healthy. Science proves we need vitamin D. One of the reasons why so-called experts were so concerned about Americans during COVID was because so many Americans are vitamin D deficient and obese. Those were the two variables that made so-called experts very concerned about the American population. So imagine wanting to dim the sun. I mean, it is maniacal. Again, it makes you wonder if they have information that, would make them want to do that we are not privy to. I don't know, but it's definitely not an excuse. Everybody on this planet has a right to understand what's going on, and that's not something I really believe in anyway. I think that again, we can go back to the fact that these people are so compartmentalized. You listen to people like Ray Kurzweil, Peter Thiel, Sam Altman, these types of people who are developing these higher level of technologies, and they are so hyper focused. They are so hyper-focused and compartmentalized on progress and compartmentalized on technology and machine technology specifically that in itself, I think, explains a lot about why they do what they do. There is an agenda at play here. They are not for stagnation, as Peter Thiel said, stagnation. That's the opposite of what he wants. He wants acceleration. They want technology. And, at this point, I think we're seeing the effects of geoengineering. And, they're shaping the culture through university programs, right? They're pumping out these young people with the cult agenda, which is humans are bad, and we need to control the environment, right? We need to control everything about the environment. And that means that humans have to suffer. They need to be tracked, they need to be traced, and they need to be punished for any assault against the environment. So environment could be the major crisis. It could be AI that is the major crisis. As Peter Thiel indicated, I think nuclear is a possibility. I think communism, although I think that's probably lower on the list of a mechanism to use to get people to comply. But I think climate is high on the list. They tried a virus, right? That kind of started everything off. I don't know if they'll go back to that one. But yeah, that's where we are at. All right, let's move into our health topic rather, because I think people want to learn about this. Maybe if you are privileged to have beautiful toenails, maybe you're not even aware that this is an issue. But I wanted to bring this up because I get the question about toenails on my text line, 720-303-8868, all the time. So what is the cause of unhealthy toenails? Well, first of all, what is an unhealthy toenail? What do I mean by crumbling toenails? Well, believe it or not, what happens is a lot of times the toenail will become infected with a fungus. Funguses thrive in warm, moist environments. So think about gym showers or tight shoes, sweaty socks. And what happens is the fungus breaks down the keratin in the toenail and it causes crumbling. So when you try to cut your toenails, maybe they don't snip off like they used to. Maybe they kind of crumble away. Or maybe you're experiencing toenails that are discolored. So they may be yellow or even tinted light green. And also they got a funny thickness to them. They're not like the way they used to be, maybe. There's a weird thickness to them. These are all signs that you're experiencing a fungal infection in your toenails. Now, why? Why does this happen? Well, one reason is nutrient deficiencies. So you may have low levels of biotin, zinc, iron, or you might not be getting enough protein or omega-3s. These are all signs because those things affect nail strength and growth. Nails, of course, are made of keratin, and that relies on adequate nutrition. So pay attention to your nails. It's not just about vanity, right? It's not just about vanity. This is all communication coming from the body. And we're kind of taught to overlook a lot of communication that comes from our body. Oh, your hair just gets thinner as you get older. Accept it. Oh, your nails got, weaker or thinner. Accept it. This is just part of aging. No, it's a communication from your body. And the communication is letting you know we got to change something. And so respond. It's a pretty easy fix, really. Another possible cause for your toenails crumbling could be circulation problems from a poor blood flow from things like diabetes or peripheral artery disease, or even smoking can limit nutrients reaching the nail bed. So consider those things as well. Psoriasis or eczema. This is an inflammatory skin condition, and it can often affect the nail matrix, causing pitting, crumbling, or separation from the nail bed. So the bigger question, if you have a psoriasis or eczema, what is your gut health like? Because your skin is a direct reflection of your gut health. So if you're experiencing disturbances in your skin like that, there's a couple things going on, but understand that we are symbiotic beings, right? So if your body doesn't get your attention with the communication from your gut, so say you're dealing with things like GERD, or you're dealing with things maybe with heartburn or disruptions in your digestion, and you don't respond accordingly, maybe you respond with over-the-counter antacids, which is a cover-up. It's not getting to the root cause of the problem. When you don't get to the root cause of the problem, you cover it up. Guess what? How smart the body is. It sends you another communication. Hey, you're not paying attention to me. You're not paying attention to me. I'm going to go ahead and signal through your nails. I mean, I say this all the time, and I don't mean to sound like a dork, but the human body just absolutely amazes me. It amazes. It knows nothing else than to thrive and survive, and it is trying its darndest to do that for you. It's communicating with you all the time. Many of us just don't understand the language. And so it's time. It's time to understand the language. So keep in mind, if you are dealing with psoriasis or eczema, what are you doing about your gut health? Because that's really the root cause there that needs to be fixed. If you're dealing with any kind of skin issues, you also support your detox pathways, because if your liver is overburdened, your kidneys are overburdened, your lymph system is overburdened, what happens is the body says, those are overburdened. I'm going to push this out through the skin. I'm telling you, it's an absolute miracle. It'll find a way. It will find a way. It is designed to keep you alive. It knows nothing else, and it will do whatever it can to make sure that you're doing that you're surviving. The next thing is a thyroid imbalance. So both hypothyroidism and hyperthyroidism can disrupt nail growth and structure, leading to brittle or weak nails. Now, and in my experience, when you're dealing with thyroid issues, you really need to look at what exposures that you are in. What kind of toxic exposure are you living in? Environment or stress. Okay, stress can really run your thyroid down as well. Again, get to root cause. most of the stuff that I'm talking about here when it comes to our toenails, there's probably something else going on first. And the toenail thing is a secondary issue. Physical trauma. So, take into account too that repeated injury from like tight shoes or stubbing your toe or running a marathon. Oh, gross. I remember when I ran the San Francisco Marathon, I lost more than one toenail, and that was pretty disgusting. It was pretty ugly. So keep in mind that it could be physical trauma as well. Overuse of harsh products. So nail polish remover, cleaning chemicals, or foot soaks with strong ingredients can strip nail oils and dry out and change your nail, change the way your nails appear as well. And I will say this, as somebody that likes to go get their nails done from time to time, I have backed off a lot because the type of nail polish I was using, I'm a real believer in you're never going to get rid of all toxic exposure. We live in the modern world. It's impossible to get rid of all toxic exposure. It's not going to happen. So minimize it, right? Change the things that are easy to change, that don't bother you that much to change, right? Change your laundry detergent to something clean. Change your kitchen cleaning stuff for, easy to do. And if you want to indulge in some nail care or some pedicures or manicures from time to time, you can handle a little exposure. It's not about becoming so hyper focused on it that honestly, it becomes a phobia for some people. That's not what I'm about here. I'm about mitigating what you can and understanding what you're doing. So then you can make an informed choice. So if you want to go get your nails done from time to time, I personally have backed off of it somewhat. I do it from time to time, especially when something, a special occasion is coming up. But I have noticed that it's wearing down the strength of my nails. And so I'm like, now it's not a benefit. If it's wearing down my nails and it's sacrificing the quality of my nails, it's now not a benefit. So I've backed off. I do it very rarely now. And that's the reason why. So just being aware, right, that could be the cause, because I think a lot of people get their nails done and they think, oh, my nails are getting softer. Well, I must be getting older. No, it's the product you're putting on it. It's the product you're putting on it. The next one, number 9, is autoimmune conditions. So things like lupus, rheumatoid arthritis, and other autoimmune disorders can also interfere with healthy nail growth. So you want to make sure you're addressing those as well. Of course, we're living in a time of autoimmune, epidemic. And there are so many other paths than just medication and accepting a diagnosis with that. I see it all the time, people reversing autoimmune disease with diet, with exercise, with somatic body release. A lot of stored trauma can lead to autoimmune disease. And there's many reasons for autoimmune disease. So never stop searching for answers if that's something that you're dealing with. But again, it's a secondary communication coming from your body, a secondary communication, So gut health is a great place to start, especially when you're dealing with autoimmune and, of course, all of those other things that I listed. So did you know, there's some key supplementation that you can take to help strengthen your nails as well. I always recommend a synergistic approach, right? Nutrition, of course, is number one. I'm definitely a food first practitioner, where I think the biggest impact you can make is what you're putting inside your body, what you're exposed to on a daily basis. Those are how you're moving your body, how you're sleeping, right? But supplementation is absolutely important. Our food just does not contain the same amount of nutrients that it used to. We have bankrupt soils, we have toxic exposure. There's a lot of variables as to why, but some of the things that you can supplement with to improve your nails, if this is an issue that you're dealing with, is collagen. Low molecular weight collagen. We have one here at naturallyinspiredstore.com. It's a wonderful one, especially the one that contains biotin, would be very helpful. And it's a great essential for building up your nails. Also, vitamin D3, we have a wonderful one at naturallyinspiredstore.com as well. Supports your immune function. Of course, we know it supports your immune system, helps the body manage fungal and brittle nail issues. Also, a powerful product, our cellular reset. I've got mine right here. I take it every day at 3 o'clock. This one's shooting to the top. I'm getting so many texts about this now. People have been on it for 30, 60, 90 days now. And they're like, okay, this is what it is. This has definitely helped my fatigue. This is definitely helping me in terms of energy. I'm sleeping better. My inflammation is down. My skin's cleared up. They're starting to come in now, the testimonies. So the cellular reset is a fantastic choice. It just gives you kind of a polyphenol bomb, is what I like to say. And it clears up things, oxidative stress and inflammation. It's a powerful tool. Omega Guard, which is omega-3s, is a wonderful way to supplement that healthy fat that you need for healthy skin, hair, and nails, and so much more. Supports your nervous system, which of course I'm always talking about, a resilient nervous system. And then, just an overall multivitamin and mineral support for overall health, where you get the foundational nutrients, is always recommended as well. We have all of these products at naturallyinspiredstore.com. We have clinically tested, they're tested for over 2,400 different chemicals. It's a clean product line. And the bonus of it is, when you are a customer of Naturally Inspired, it isn't just about buying products. It's about becoming part of a community that offers you support. We have ongoing sessions every Tuesday night at 7 o'clock. Hop on Zoom. If you can't make them live, you can always log in on demand. That is a perk and a benefit of being a customer of Naturally Inspired. That is how we're going to change and shape the culture of health in this country, is one person at a time, accepting personal responsibility and taking action with their health. Dean Lerwick is going to be joining us. We're going to do things a little differently. And so I'm just going to say a little silent prayer that goes well today, because yesterday we had Dean on and we had some great questions for him, but we had some terrible reception out at the ranch, and we didn't get to talk to him as much as we wanted to. So Jason, just let me know when Dean is on, so that I can make sure that I bring him on and we can get going with Pumpkin Creek Ranch. So a little note would be good. Dean is on. Perfect. Okay. I am just going to find my questions here. Okay. Oh my goodness. I've done an hour and a half with no commercials. Feels a little weird, but we're keep on going on. If you haven't followed me for some time, then you might not know who Dean Lerwick is. Dean Lerwick is a family rancher. Pumpkin Creek Ranch is the name of their ranch. You can visit pumpkincreekranchco.com for all their latest deals. It is fantastic beef, but more importantly, it's not just about Pumpkin Creek as a brand. This family is going against the grain a little bit. No pun intended. But they have chosen to take their ranch in a regenerative way. And there's a number of reasons why. And that's why we talk frequently to Dean Lerwick from Pumpkin Creek Ranch about his journey and regenerative farming and the impact on our food. Dean, welcome to Naturally Inspired Radio today. How are you doing?
Doing well, Tammy. We'll try this again. Yesterday was kind of a mess on my end.
No worries. I think we got it worked out. You sound a little bit like you're in a tin can, but I'm confident we're going to hear you today. So I think it'll work out. Yesterday we kind of left off talking about, I think I got to tell you, if I remember correctly, that, it was Will Harris I was listening to, who of course has kind of been a spotlight recently, made it onto the Joe Rogan podcast and whatnot, and he's down in Bluffington, Georgia, I believe, or Buffton, Georgia. I might be saying that wrong. Anyway, he's got this whole regenerative practice down there. And of course, we've talked about how it's very different, geographically. It's different when you're ranching and farming in different states. But he invited Secretary Rollins down to his farm. And I thought that was really interesting. He said, I'll bed you, I'll feed you. I want you to come down and see the impact that a regenerative farm like his could have. And I kind of wanted your thoughts on that and how you think, like, what would happen if we invited Secretary Rollins to Pumpkin Creek and showed her the plans. Pumpkin Creek has wonderful plans to build a processing plant that not just serves them, but serves other small ranchers, so that we can shorten up the food supply in our country. We get accused of being, people who are not rational when we say things like small ranching can feed the country. We get, pushed back and told, no, we need GMO. We need all these modern practices. Otherwise, we can't feed the world. Whereas mine and Dean's kind of approach to feeding the world is like, everybody kind of take care of their own community. Let's feed our community. So what do you think that would look like? And do you think that that would ever happen, Dean?
Well, the latter question is probably easier to answer for me than the former one, whether or not it had ever happened. It seems unlikely at this point, but I do think that it would have value. Where we're trying to step outside of the more conventional system, even when we moved outside of the wheat fallow system, we moved into a more unconventional system of no-till continuous crop when we did that. But now we've been in that practice for so long that's become more or less widely accepted as one variation of conventional, and so now we're stepping outside of that again. And honestly, a lot of what is conventional agriculture is probably driven as much by the retailers as it is the farmers. We go to these conferences, we go to all sorts of trade shows and everything, and take farm publications, and all of it is geared towards telling us how we should be farming, how we need to farm, and that kind of serves as enforcing a type of status quo or conventional view of things, and that leads to greater and greater inputs. And so when we go to a regenerative system like Will's practicing, or like we're trying to develop and learn how to practice, one of the hallmarks of that is a much reduced input cost. And when we're out here on the high plains, we have pretty tight margins because moisture is always a question. It's always a limiting factor for us, or maybe I should say the limiting factor. And so we recognize that we need to reduce our inputs and shift our cost center to a lower input system. And that's not good for retailers. That's not good for ag input retailers. It's not good for the fertilizer companies, the pesticide and insecticide companies. And so that's always going to get pushback. The thing that I believe that there is the ability to produce enough food in our communities to feed our communities, at least the majority of their staples. Western Nebraska is never going to be an avocado or a citrus grower. So obviously we can't produce that here, but the staple food that we exist on, you absolutely can. And I do believe that if we are interested in developing resilient systems, then we have to shorten our supply chains, and the only way to do that is to increase our processing capacity. And to that end, I do think that the Secretary Rollins needs to understand that even if we don't necessarily have a lot of financial incentives or anything like that, maybe we need to talk more about getting out of the way and not impeding us. And yesterday when we were trying to visit, you'd ask about some of the financial incentives or even subsidies that the larger retail or packing facilities would get. And one of the things that established facilities have is a lot of these USDA programs that are designed. And during COVID, there were several that were proposed, and even some of the grants were financed or funded. I mean, they were designed to increase packing capacity. That's what the grants were supposed to be for, but they only went to established facilities that had a track record. And so it just enlarged what already existed. It did not increase new startups. It didn't increase more local and small packers.
What you described sounds like the good old boys club, the same old guys kind of getting the same old support. And it sounds like a kind of a tough chain to break. Can you talk to me a little bit about the processing plant that Pumpkin Creek has in mind? What is it? I know I at the Naturally Inspired Health Summit, I learned a lot about your guys' plans, which we hadn't really talked about before. So I kind of want to share those with our audience so that they know what your goal is and what you guys are trying to accomplish here. So talk to me a little bit about the design for your processing plant and the development, what that looks like.
So when we started retailing direct to consumer, it didn't take us long to realize that our bottleneck, the impediment to our growth and being able to offer the customer a steady supply of beef was always going to be the choke point was processing. And so we started retailing in 2018, and by 2019 we had several conversations with various customers. Some of them were fairly well off financially and were connected to the beef industry and the dairy industry, and they started pointing out that was the choke point. And so coincidentally, we had started visiting with various small lockers, looking at what options there might be available to us. And because we are retailing across state lines and retailing, shipping nationwide, the facility that we process through has to be USDA inspected. And so that right away cuts our plants that we can process through drastically. And so we started talking to some local lockers in the Western Nebraska area, and kind of touring them, looking at different options of, looking at whether or not we should try to purchase one and retrofit it, remodel, and what have you. And in June of 2020, we sat down for the first time with a contractor that specialized in maintenance and construction of packing facilities. Their focus was more smaller facilities, but we sat down and visited with them, and then we initiated a design process. We always knew that it was going to require financial partners because we were never going to be able to finance the facility on our own. But what my brother and I, Jared and I's vision was that we would have a smaller processing facility where it would be USDA inspected, and kind of the first phase is it's just custom processing where we are able to process their own cattle, process other people's cattle that would be available, then they could direct retail it. And the idea was that we had learned a lot through our own journey of direct-to-consumer sales. Learned a lot about marketing direct to consumer. We learned a lot about branding, and if there was a mistake to be made, we pretty much did it. And so we wanted to expand our offering to be able to help other farmers and ranchers that wanted to start selling direct to the consumer. And so our vision, long-term vision, was that we would start the plant, we'd get it up and running, and then we would start offering marketing assistance, branding assistance, and then eventually also shipping to other farms and ranches that would choose to use the facility that we're trying to get built. Because our vision, our goal in all of this is to help farmers and ranchers break out of the conventional model and begin to have freedom again.
Yep.
We've witnessed farms and ranches get bigger and bigger and bigger, and talk to that's my community. Talk to a lot of farmers and ranchers, and it is a constant frustration that it's difficult to find help. You have to be a much larger size than you probably want to, just to be able to survive, because in the conventional production system, you are a margin producer. So the more numbers you can turn over, the quicker you can turn them over, that's where you make your money. And we wanted to break that and provide even the smaller ranchers and farmers an option where they could go direct to the consumer, and instead of giving all of that margin that people were making off of their product to the middleman, to the packer, the retailer, and all that, we wanted to help them bypass all of that and go direct to their customer and keep more of that money. And so that was kind of the long-term goal. We eventually ended up, I believe it was 2022, we had it was looking like we had a partner identified, and that partner had encouraged us to go ahead and file the paperwork with the county to get a conditional use permit, because the location that we had identified was in the city limits of Gearing, Nebraska, and it had Gearing's rules for their zoning required any packing facilities to obtain a conditional use permit. So we went ahead and did that. We had our conditional use permit. We also applied for TIF financing, tax increment financing, that assists in the development of infrastructure, like sewage, paving, parking lots, curbs, what have you. Basically the development of the utilities for the location. And we were able to obtain a pretty substantial TIF bond for the project. That all happened in, I believe it was 22. And then the one that we'd identified that was in talks with us about becoming a financial partner backed out. And we've had several others that we've gone through and vetted and gotten quite a ways down the road, and then for whatever reason they've stepped aside. That's the difficulty with identifying partners in this sort of a venture, is the conventional equity firms that might be interested in a project that shows a promising return. They shy away from packing facilities. There's just kind of a stigma attached to it, difficult terrain to navigate, and margins can get squeezed. And so it's a challenge. We've been working for 5 years now trying to develop financial partners for the project. Project is ready to go.
Yeah, I just want to be clear here because you never know who's listening. This is a like a reopening essentially of a USDA inspected plant in Gering, isn't it?
Yeah, so the location where the plant will be built whenever we are able to obtain the financial partners actually hosted, or I mean, it was the location for a previous plant that was much, much larger. This plant that we are looking to develop is rated at 20 head per day for 100. It's a 5-day we kill cycle for 100 animals per week, 400 animals per month. Our conditional use permit was up to 800 animals per month, but the previous facility that was there, by some counts, was processing up to 300 animals per day. And so this is a substantially smaller facility than that, but it has all the utilities and everything are sized for a much larger plant. The utilities had been upgraded in the late 2008, 2010, somewhere in there. They had been upgraded just shortly before that other plant closed down.
Got it. Well, can you talk a little bit about the benefit to the consumer? Because here's what I think. I think that the marketplace drives a lot of this stuff, right? What people want. And I know for certain that people want a good quality beef. They do not want to be lied to about what's in their beef. We've established, transparency is kind of the new labeling that we should be looking for. Organic doesn't mean the same thing that it did, 15 years ago. Organic is it's not the same. There's been a lot of manipulation of labels. And so what people should be looking for is the label that like Pumpkin Creek Ranch, the label that offers transparency. So talk to me a little bit about the benefit to direct to consumer for the consumer.
Well, what you end up with, and really the thing that direct to consumer has going for it that say a grocery store doesn't, is that relationship, that personal relationship. And so that's what we are hoping and looking to foster, even with this processing facility, is the personal relationship between the producer and the consumer. And if we are hiding behind the anonymity of a national label, or just selling into a national packer, that relationship doesn't exist. It's broken. It's much easier to be persuaded to do things on the production side that your customer, your end customer, the ultimate customer, the guy that's eating the steak or the hamburger that you're producing, may not want. But if you don't have that personal relationship with them, well, if I do, give this feed additive, maybe I can produce a little bit more efficiently and add a few dollars to my bottom line. And meanwhile, the consumer's saying, but I don't want it. I'm not going to buy that. Well, we're hiding behind the packers then. Where what the goal with our plant that we're trying to get built is that we would facilitate that personal relationship. And admittedly, that takes a different mindset on the part of the producer, because there's a lot of reluctance on the part of the producers in the community that I'm a part of to have even country of origin labeling, even down to being able to identify the animals raised on a particular farm or ranch, because they're fearful, and rightfully so, they're fearful of litigation.
Right.
That's the big thing.
Well, this country's in dire need of law reform. There's no doubt about that, but that needs to happen as well.
Yeah. So, but if we can add that, that relationship, and if we can facilitate that relationship between producers and customers, that would be, as far as we are concerned, that would make the company, the business, a success. Because I think that's where the real changes will occur. when you have a personal relationship with your consumer, the person that you're producing the beef for, and they say, you know what, I don't really want growth hormones, and I know it's going to increase your production costs, but I'm willing to pay a little bit more. And that's what we've seen with the people that have become our customers. We've developed friendships, and they don't want all these feed additives. They don't want the hormones. They don't want the feed grade antibiotics. They don't want certain food ingredients used to finish the cattle, used to produce the beef. And whether or not whether or not the science is there to say, well, no, that's an unmerited concern, it doesn't matter. If that's what the customer wants, then we give it to them. And that is because we have a relationship that frankly put matters to us. And I think that that's ultimately what's going to fix our broken food system.
I think so too. And that will create real competition as well between smaller ranchers, which we want that, right? We want people striving for a better product. Right now, we have such a conglomerate, right? We have all the same companies involved in a lot of our food supply. So people put up with a lot because they kind of have an attitude of like, well, that's all there is. Like, that's what you're going to get no matter where you go. And I think we have to stop that kind of, just accepting that this is the way things are. And we're going to have to work back into, supporting quality things because it does have a direct impact on our health.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Yeah, that relationship, and we know very clearly that there's plenty of room in the market for many more producers. There's no way, it would be physically impossible for our farm to saturate the market in this area. Just simply is. We lack the ability to produce that many cattle. So there's plenty of room for others that want to do this. But there's a perverse incentive to not have that relationship when you're fearful of the litigation. But the other thing is, when you have a farmer or rancher that is raising cattle just to sell them into a feedlot, their number one concern is how fast those animals grow. That's it.
Right.
Not
right.
They really don't have to worry a whole lot about the quality of the finished product. Their main concern is a live calf and a heavy calf when they go take them to the sale barn to sell them. When you start marketing directly a finished product, the focus of your breeding system has to change for a rancher. You have to be concerned with what that end product is going to look like, and you have to start changing your bull selection and the reason you might keep certain cows or sell certain cows out of your herd. That all changes, and so we are working an uphill battle here. If we're going to start helping people move more direct to consumer in their marketing, they got to have a mindset change. Mm-hmm. And that's what we hope that we can help people navigate, because we've had to do that ourselves.
Yeah. And but when you keep the end in mind, right, you got to keep your eyes fixated on the end in mind. We're talking about real sustainability here, right? We're not talking about short-term profits. And I think when people understand that full scope of what you're trying to do here, we don't have a choice. If we continue, I was just doing a piece before you came on, Dean, about how climate is probably going to be the weapon of choice when it comes to trying to usher people into a more digital surveillance type of world. You're not going to have access as a consumer if you don't support small ranching, and if we don't start building up some of our own infrastructure for things like processing meat and whatnot. We're going to lose it. we're going to lose access to it because these corporations, they're working hand in hand to regulate some of this stuff. And they're already switching their game over to other things, preparing for, not producing as much meat based on the climate edicts. Do you see that?
Yeah, RFK, when he came in, he started talking about regulatory capture. And I think that's the real battle that's going to occur here, because the big conglomerates, the ag chemical, the big pharma, all of these, they like regulatory agencies. They just want to have their people on the inside controlling them and calling the shots. And so that's the big risk that we run here, dealing with all of this, is we are on the bottom of the heap. And these regulatory agencies, you're not going to find many farmers and ranchers that like regulatory agencies. We really don't. It's kind of in our DNA not to. But we've long viewed them as the enemy and wondered why these big chemical companies and all these other companies would participate. Well, if what RFK's been talking about, regulatory capture, they control the market by their people on the inside of these agencies that are making the rules that shut out the small guys.
Absolutely.
That's a big challenge.
That is. PumpkinCreekRanchCo.com, everybody. I know we're a little off today because we don't have any commercials with technical difficulties, but I want to make sure you get the website, PumpkinCreekRanchCo.com, PumpkinCreekRanchCo.com. They have absolutely delicious beef. It's the beef we use in our household. Dean, if somebody out there is listening and they've heard your plans for Pumpkin Creek Ranch and they understand the mission and they would want to invest in Pumpkin Creek, what's the best way to get a hold of you?
Reach out through our website or directly. And all of that contact information is on our website. That's probably the best way to reach out to us, so that rather than try to give out phone numbers, we've got them on the website. So check that and either email us or contact us directly.
Pumpkin Creek Ranch is actively looking for investors for a processing plant, and they plan on making that a community asset to help secure quality beef and small food supply chain. We all need to support it. So if you or someone you know hears this today, reach out to PumpkinCreekRanchCo.com. That's PumpkinCreekRanchCo.com. Dean Lerwick, thank you so much for joining me today. As always, you taught me something, and I look forward to our next chat. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Tammy. Have a good day.
You too. Thanks, everybody, for tuning in to Naturally Inspired Radio. I hope you have a fantastic weekend, and we'll be back here Monday at 3 o'clock. I hope you'll join us. See you then.